Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dr. Matthew Dunn, host of The Future of Email Marketing, and I am especially delighted that my guest today is Glenn Edley, CEO of Spike. And Glenn and I are talking clear across the Pacific because Glenn is in New Zealand. Hi, Glenn.
Hey, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. What time is it there?
It's 8:06 a.m. So
8:06. Okay, I was
yeah,
great.
you're my first one for the day.
I'm going to forewarn, especially if you're listening and not watching this on video. I've had the pleasure of multiple conversations with Glenn before. We've gotten acquainted over the past year. So if we do shorthand and reference stuff, and you don't know where it's coming from, it's because we've had a chance to talk before. And he was one of the first people I thought to have on as a guest. So this is fun. He's also got the most interesting office background, and it's not virtual. If someone's just listening, what would they tell them what they'd be seeing behind you, Glenn?
Well, they'd be seeing my workshop, so they'd be seeing my classic racing car, my Peugeot, and whatever other project I've got on at the time seems to fill in the background. So it makes sure that I keep it as tidy. It's probably one of the tidiest workshops around, I've been told. But it just has to be, right? Because when I'm on a Zoom call, it needs to look good, and it just means that I just make sure it's tidy. I finish things.
Hey.
And it'll be fun because it's sometimes this car hasn't moved for a while, and so people have a dig at me about that. It's like, well, what project are you on next, Glenn? It's also good if you're on video. It's also quite good advertising for my business because it's written right down the side of it.
Right. So he's actually in a garage, right? Like this is garage office with it, as you said, a Peugeot behind you. The first time we talked, I believe, was pre-pandemic, and then like the second or third time we talked, I'm like, whoa, different setting. And you had picked up, carted, and moved, even though you're in a country that's actually dealt with this so phenomenally well.
Well, for 20 years, people had said to me, and it has been 20 years, said to me like, oh, you can do this from anywhere, can't you? And I'm like, oh, I don't really think so. People like to meet me in person, like all that stuff, right? And I know you've been, doing this virtually for forever. So, or for 15 years. And so thanks to COVID, I upped sticks and moved everyone home. And we won't be going back to an office. I think it was basically just ripping the plaster off, and I think I still go and meet people,
Sure.
if they want to, but on my own terms. And we're getting fiber out here soon, so even better.
Oh, even better. Well, so just for orientation, and we'll come back to it multiple times as we talk, I'm sure. But can you fill in the elevator version of Spike?
Okay, so Spike has been around for 20 years. Spike has been around since August 2004. I've been email marketing since 2001. And so Spike is a managed email marketing agency. We're a done-for-you agency.
Right.
In New Zealand, I think we're the only one. There might be some smaller ones. But, we've been concentrating on big box retail for the last 10 or so years. That finished as people started to move into other areas of digital that they felt were more important, and which we can talk about because it's just not. And anyway, so I've gone back to my first love, which is I like to talk about this, which is small business and getting their customer databases together and just helping them communicate with their customers. I feel that email marketing or email is still the best channel to do that. It's private, it's direct, it's one-to-one. If you think about it as one-to-one, you can really elevate your communication. So it comes down to, I really love communicating with my customers and helping people sell stuff. And when I saw this, here was in 2001, here was a way where one person could communicate with hundreds, if not thousands of people and carry on with their day-to-day stuff. And at the time I got into real estate. It was my first foray. I had a real estate lady named Jill McClatchy Harvey's Titterang, sign up as my first client in 2004. And the agents could list and sell, which is what they should do. And then we could keep in contact, regularly. And what the thing is that the agents that I worked with back then, they're still like top agents today.
Oh, wow.
Like I still know them. Like one of them sold us this house.
There you go.
Yeah,
So it must
email
work.
marketing works.
Yeah.
Email marketing works.
Yeah, it definitely does. One of the things that I know about you and about Spike is that you've got a considerable amount of expertise on MailChimp. Like I think recently MailChimp certified partner, correct?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I worked out that I'd actually made a bit of a mistake, Matthew, because I didn't realize that I should have been, like, it didn't even cross my mind that I should have been connecting accounts. so like, to be up near number one in the experts directory there, you have to have a lot of connected accounts.
Yeah.
And I hadn't done that. And so, but anyway, I'm working on that. And I think that MailChimp have given me a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
To learn even more about email marketing, but also they listen. Like I would say they're one of the only platforms, the only platform that I work with who actively listen to their partners and
Nice.
and are doing something about it. And it's really great. It means that, I suppose I am evangelizing it to a point, but I just feel like in the last few years, and it's only the last few years, maybe 3 years, like they've really, really taken off. Like that, like Ben and Dan, the founders, have really started just pouring on the gas to MailChimp as a platform, and it's just getting better and better. So, what I talk about, Matthew, with MailChimp is the runway before you have to leave, and they just keep extending that runway.
Right. Yeah.
It used to be short. It used to be like we'd have to bang you out of there pretty quickly and move you on to something else. Like I've got my own system that I work with some guys called Green Arrow. They're based in the States. Been working with them for a very, very long time, like 13 odd years or so. And so, but like, that runway is just getting longer and longer and longer. And for the businesses that I want to focus on and work with, MailChimp, like, I don't think you have to move,
Outside praise. Yeah. And I would agree with you about the runway going out. I don't have nearly your depth of expertise in MailChimp, but I have used the platform off and on for well over a decade.
Yeah.
And I have to say, one of the things about MailChimp, they're a real innovator in UI, and that seems like a little thing to talk about, but that's a very big deal. It's not easy to make things easy.
No. Like, do you know what? It's the interesting thing. Like, I actually wrote an article in 2015, which I found actually lambasting. I was giving them grief, actually. Because to me, they'd commoditized email marketing, and they'd basically put these tools, these weapons of mass email marketing into these hands, but they hadn't provided the training of how to actually use these tools. And so basically a lot of SMEs globally were spamming. Like, SMEs are still some of the worst spammers in the world. They just don't get it, right? They just like export out their list. So like MailChimp actually are making that harder for you to do that. But it's been an interesting process because that's a very short time for them to totally turn everything around and realize that their partners who actually sign people up and start promoting that you should work with an expert, even if it's just on setup. Like, if we can design and build a template for you that you can drag and drop, if we can put, like, the key is a marketing calendar. Like, no one has marketing calendars. Even some of the biggest companies we work with, some of them haven't really got a nailed down marketing calendar that they're working to. And so, we help people with that. And the other thing is writing content, which I'll just touch on, is I came up with this idea. I don't know if it's new, but I call it the power of the BCC. So when I see companies, especially a lot of accounting companies, because I've been looking at them lately, and they've all signed up for like BizInc and these different businesses building their websites for them. And they've all signed up. And some of them even have MailChimp. I can see that their websites are using MailChimp, but they don't have a newsletter sign up, which is just,
Okay.
It's just such a missed opportunity. But yeah, it's oh gosh, I've just lost my track there, Matthew. But I was
Power of the BCC.
All right, power of the BCC. Sorry, everyone. So the power of the BCC means that you can have your own unique content in a very easy way. And basically, what you do is you take the questions that you answer every day in your business, especially if you're a service business. And
right.
Yes, you can use those as your FAQs. Some of them you will, but actually, you can be. What I talk about is just have an email address, maybe newsletter@yourdomain.com. And you just BCC it. And then once a month, a week out before your email is meant to be sent, you log in there and you have a look. Look, we do it for accountants, and it means that they are sending really unique content every month. It's easy for them to do. They don't even have to think about it. We just like choose some articles, put them into the newsletter.
Yeah.
Because we have a marketing planner, so we can plan. And then they sign it off. We build the emails, test them, done. Like it doesn't take long. We can keep the costs down, but the power of the BCC is just such an easy way to answer that question. What are we going to send this month?
Now I find it particularly intriguing, and this is a roundabout way to get back to it, but I want to do a roundabout way to get back to it for a reason. In parts in a previous life, I started doing a lot of voiceover. So I started having to spend the time with, mics and recording gear and stuff like that, listening to myself. And I started getting really fascinated with the differences between how we speak and how we write. And here's the BCC angle to that. I would bet that your accounting clients find that BCC'd stuff is, it's their voice, it's their perspective, it's their style. And I bet they end up going, wow, that was a lot less work than if I'd sat down to write it.
Yes. Well, I don't even have to do that, Matthew, because they've already written it.
It's already there. They've already written it. But the conscious, I have always said email is conversation or frozen speech. Right? It's a very conversational media. And when you say, I'm going to bang off a quick note to Glenn about, next week's podcast, I don't go into vapor lock as if I were writing an article or something like that. Like, oh, it's got to be. You just bang it off and go hit send, and there you go. And it's often much more authentic, and much less sort of stylistically bound up than stuff that you sit down to officially write. Do you agree?
I absolutely agree. And I just did a review of 900, it was about 1,000 accountants in New Zealand. Wow. And we went through all of their websites, and 38 of them had a newsletter.
That's it?
That's it, right? 38 had a newsletter, and several of them were the same website. So this is what I was talking about. Same website. I was like, when I was going through, I was like, oh, if I come to the same website, oh no, the logo's different, the colors are a bit different, but everything's the same. Yeah, everything. Even their newsletter was the same. And look, I understand that. If you want to, in fact, just the idea of being consistent, but the fact is you can be consistent. Maybe it costs you a little bit more money, but you'll be sending unique, useful, and relevant information in your voice to your clients, right? Or to people who potentially want to be your clients. So to have 950 odd or whatever it is, somewhere up around, who didn't even have a newsletter sign up form on their website, I was like, are you too busy? Because accountants is really on my mind right now, because it's even up on my board in front of me, my goal for that. But I just feel like they are this trusted voice, trusted partner even, and they're not they're not looking forward. And hey, look, they are actually trained to look backwards. And so, looking forwards to oblivion, which in some ways, like, I know we're on accountants right now, but the fact is they need to reinvent themselves, because zero basically takes the place pretty much. Anyway, I think, but any business, any service business, I mean, I love e-commerce, I love selling stuff. I've been doing that for a long time, well, the whole time, because I like selling stuff, I like sales, I like writing copy. And in fact, if there's one thing that people take out of this interview today, is that subject lines are the key to getting your email opened. And the thing about that is that you've got to remember that the from is trusted, and then because you signed up for it, right? And then so you trust them to send you an email, but that subject line is going to pique that curiosity. And this is where people need to spend time learning about copy, learning about what's going to get someone to open that email, using that pre-header. Don't just bury like view online in there. I mean, I'm going into the weeds a little bit, but I'm very passionate about the top of an email. And I know when someone is just using some standard template because it says view this email online, and it's like, it's 2021, no one's doing that. Like, we're all on our phone. 60% of emails are opened on your phone first, right? So, I remember, do you know what I remember? 2007. I still have my iPhone 3 and in a box. But I remember I used to talk about email being so the letter was at your letterbox, right? So the postman got to there, and then email got to the screen. So it was like, 18 inches away. And then 2007 mobile, like, your brand and your message is literally in the palm of your customer's hands.
And with them 7x24 to boot.
Exactly.
I realized we just did one of those shorthand things that I thought we might do because we talked before. Glenn mentioned Xero, and especially if you're listening, that's Xero.com. And what Glenn and I had talked about, Xero is a New Zealand company. This fantastic, amazing cloud-based accounting system. I had looked at it years earlier, and my accountant was like, "No, don't make me leave QuickBooks." I'm like, "Please, I hate QuickBooks." And I'm not knocking into it, one of my favorite companies, but QuickBooks and I are not friends. But Xero has taken a whole bunch of that stuff and automated and made it a process. And I think where you're talking about, accountants need to think about the future and change. Like, the more the rules get cooked into the software, the more your advice, understanding, perspective, ability to think in the future for my business will matter to you being viable as an accountant. Fair statement.
It is a fair statement. And why I chose Xero is that they have a MailChimp integration, right?
There you go.
So why aren't accountants helping their customers who have all of their customers in their Xero accounting system? Why aren't they using, like, advising them on how to grow their business? And this is where I think accountants are missing a trick, because they are that trusted voice. If you're a Xero partner, like, we're looking into the integration. It doesn't have amazing reviews right now, so we need to find out a bit more about it. But we know it works, but which is enough. But the thing is that at least Xero has thought about that, and then it's like telling the accountants that, hey, you could actually be helping your clients, your customers' businesses grow. And look, isn't that what we're all about? If, like, even you and I, like, let's think about what we're doing with our different businesses. At the end of the day, we're helping our clients stay in business. Because
absolutely,
I have a mantra that says, the longer I stay in business, the longer I stay in business. And I find that to be
I like
true.
it. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, and so it's been an interesting year or so
yeah.
with what's going on. An interesting year, but a year to be able to sit back and have a think about the future of business for some of my clients,
Hmm.
the future of business for me, and communication via email, which is my chosen channel. And like I said at the beginning, I still think it's the best channel because it's one-to-one. It's private, it's direct, it's in your hand. Too many people forget that there's a person on the end of that, right? And so they just tick in the box like, oh, I need to get a newsletter out. And then they just tick the box. Oh, yeah, got that out. They had a marketing planner,
Yeah.
put some thought into it, looked forward. It'd be a lot easier. Like, I mean, we have clients, I'm going to write an article soon about how to send 45 emails a month without annoying your customers. And because we've done it before,
Yeah.
and we did it by segmentation and by having rules, business rules, that someone couldn't receive more than, say, 3 or 4 emails a week because you could burn them out. But yeah, it's an interesting process where I think like it just not enough thought is given to the medium, and like as Mr. McLuhan said, the medium is the message. But it's a digression. It's just a book I've got on the yeah.
It's funny. I had a quick exchange with Della Quist from Alchemy Works. He threw a McLuhan quote into a back and forth email, and I'm like, I still find McLuhan a gas bag. I know he was smart, but trying to unwind his sentences is maddening.
Well, I'm just reading. I'm just reading a book called The Lives of the Stoics, and there was Cicero. Cicero was very verbose,
Mm-hmm.
and then Seneca wasn't. So even though they were both kind of very much like fame building guys, like they really wanted to be known after they'd gone,
Yeah.
it took Seneca to unwind all of Cicero's stuff, right? And this is where like copy and that is so important. Like, let's go from the Greeks to modern times.
Sure.
But it's so important because Seneca will be remembered for his very clear, direct messaging.
Mm-hmm.
And then Cicero, hard to understand, right? Like it takes just ages, and then you've really got to dive into it. And look, I'm going to bring this to email marketing. It's that when you are email marketing, this is this amazing channel where you can actually talk directly to people and like be so clear in your thinking because you actually have time to edit it, right? You have time to think about the subject line, A/B test the subject line, right? Like, where else can you do that? I mean, well, Google, but if you're A/B testing, we A/B test every single subject line, right?
Oh wow, yeah.
Every single one. And the reason we do that is because we're trying to maximize the opens from that, or the clicks, or the purchases, right? So we're testing everything. And you've just got to be so clear in your writing. And I'm amazed that I was able to tie Stoicism with email marketing.
Duly impressed. I think that's the biggest chronological leap of any of these conversations
only
today.
2,000 years. Only 2,000 years.
And Seneca was he was the tutor to one of the Caesars, if I recall.
Nero. He was
right. Also a playwright. Seneca.
Oh yeah, he was. And I was reading that he wrote this tragedium that was basically a conversation between him and Nero as two brothers vying to be emperor. Mm-hmm. And it was very clear at the time, apparently, that that's what it was. So anyways, Nero got annoyed. But what's amazing is how much impact some of these guys had, and yet they only like most of it's. So we think we live a long time, right? It's just not true. Like I'm just going to digress a bit. Life has not been meaningfully extended by anything really, but the way we live our life near the end is obviously a lot improved. These guys back then were living it well into their 80s, 84, 88, like, quite old. And but someone like Nero, He committed suicide. Well, because it's going to get ripped apart. So he committed suicide at 30.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that you know, like the lifespan, and we're still talking about them today,
Yeah.
is incredible, right? Because of their acts. But it was the writing. And look,
Yeah.
I write a Monday. I think about legacy, right? And I do. So I've been writing a Monday motivator since 2004.
Wow.
Now, I never missed a Monday for over 10 years. And then I actually parked it for a couple of years, right? So that's like I had like 600 or so emails, because like every Monday. And so that's a lot of content. Now, why I started it, and maybe this is a tip for people, but why I started my Monday Motivator was to keep in contact with all my prospects and clients that I met with something that was interesting. It kickstarted their week, but it wasn't about email marketing.
Right. You weren't selling.
Yeah, it was just like so it just shows like there's more to you. And I think that too many people get caught up in their email marketing talking about themselves. And this is where the power of the BCC is so important, because these are questions and topics that people are actually interested in.
Yeah.
And I think that if you do that, people will open your email. So, my Monday Motivator, I also proved with that I could send a weekly email, because at the time people say, oh, no, it's too much.
Right.
And look, and we still have those conversations today, right? Like people say, oh, no, I can't annoy my customers. And I'm like, but if you only send monthly, like that's not really enough. And then they're like, oh, I don't know what to send. And I'm like, okay.
I don't know what to send. I don't know what to say. And the truth is, and this, I'm going to seize on your Monday Motivator and your power of the BCC for a second. It's like the difference in that content is in the utility, is in the use and the value of the content. I think the guy who can't figure out what to say once a month or even once a week, he's probably not listening very well.
Exactly. He's not listening. He or she is just doing the thing. Do you remember Gary Vaynerchuk, a very long time ago, said you need to listen where people are talking.
Right. Yeah.
And so he was talking about Twitter and Instagram and, then on to Instagram and stuff. But the fact is that if you own a business, people are talking to you every single day.
Yeah.
And you need to listen to them.
Yep.
And you need to find out what those major topics are.
Wants and needs and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And then talk about it. Like, I think so many businesses talk about themselves, talk about how good they are, and it's like, no one's interested, dude. Like, no one cares. Like, it's all about what's in it for me. What is in it for me?
Right.
And like, if your newsletter is very business focused about your business, then people very quickly switch off. And they might not unsubscribe sometimes, because I find a lot of people will actually stick in there because they use it as a memory tool for what company they want to use for that service again later.
Right.
So that for those people, you want to segment them out and just send to them once a month, say. But
I mean, that's even back to your accountants who have that trusted advisor position, as you mentioned. I mean, and I'm thinking of my tax accounting guy, great guy. Like, I've worked with him for years. I only hear from him if I ask him a question, or if it's coming up on tax season and he sends out the standard, here's all the stuff you need to get together. Like, otherwise, crickets, quiet. If he wasn't a great guy, I could easily switch to someone else. But he's also missing a huge opportunity to play a more vital role in my business and raise the value of the relationship and stuff like that. I would think it'd be interesting for him as well. I don't know. Yeah.
I
like that BCC. Gonna pass that.
Yeah, it's just such like some of these service businesses, lawyers as well, lawyers and accountants, AI is going to take the place of lawyers, like it already is, right? So I think if you look 5 years ahead, uh, yeah, it's going to be interesting, right? Because technology is going to take over, and so you need to make yourself more relevant. So yeah, I mean, but one thing I wanted to touch on
Hmm.
before was about dynamic content, right? And this is where, like, we were talking about interests and what interests people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when people sign up for things, a lot of people ask what you're interested in. And so what you can do is with your marketing calendar, you can have the 4 topics or the 4 interests that you segmented your database into, because
Mm-hmm.
everyone segments their database, right?
Mm-hmm.
They don't.
Not.
I love how you agree with me, and if you could see Matthew's face, it's just like, no, they don't. But say, and MailChimp makes that really easy, right? Using tags and groups to segment it these days, and they can be hidden groups in the sign up form. There's all sorts of things to, depending on what landing page they come to.
Right.
You can have it tagged automatically. But a really simple way we were discussing in our pre-interview was about when you send out that email
Mm-hmm.
and you've got these different interests, you can have the one that person is most interested in at the top of the email.
Right.
It's such a simple thing to do with dynamic content. Things like MailChimp make it easy to do that as well.
Yeah.
You've just got to have it tagged, build the email, which I know is a bit harder than just normal emails, right? Like you might need someone to help you with that.
Yeah.
But the thing is like once you do that, and that person's interest at the top, and the great thing is you can automate this so that when their interests change, like their tag changes,
Yeah.
they automatically get the other interest at the top. People just aren't taking advantage. Businesses aren't taking advantage of just a simple process that could really like up your communication game.
Yeah. I want to throw something back at you on that, and it's just occurring to me as you're describing that. No argument about the value of doing that, and you're really saying, make your content align with your customers' known interests where you've got that. It has struck me, particularly over the last couple of years, in starting to work with email platforms, that they're not necessarily helping with that kind of piece of the solution. I have yet to see an email editor, for example, that says, build your content in sections and we'll take care of rearranging it to suit the tags if you've got them. And it's like, wouldn't it be easier for let's say, MailChimp to engineer that so it becomes kind of an automatic preference or choice for customers? Because you have to fight with your HTML or know what the heck you're doing.
Yeah.
To do that simple rearrangement. Like there's still some technical challenges and writing and content and copy challenges in doing something that's obviously valuable.
Yes.
And I've used 100 email editors. They're almost all monolithic. Our job is to help you make this one template that you're going to send look good. And I've yet to see one that really does the job that you just said is useful.
That's true. Okay, so we just did a job just last year. There was 8 sections, and there was several thousand people in the database.
Okay.
For a finance company, and we had to rearrange all of those. So we had to use dynamic content so that each of those, so 8 sections. I can't remember how many actual segments in the database there were. But there was like 30 different ways that they could be put together.
Yeah.
But MailChimp, I think if we hadn't have been using MailChimp, it would have been a lot harder.
Yeah.
So I feel like
There's
MailChimp
is for it.
It was they're really concentrating. I feel like they've got a massive development team too, right? So, and they, like I was saying, like they listen to partners like myself saying, this is what our customers are asking for. And so we were able to do that in MailChimp. And the thing that was really fun was the testing. I'm being sarcastic there.
Yeah.
Basically, we had to test every single variation of that email.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was difficult.
Permutation complexity.
It was amazing, right? We got it done though. We got it done. But that was probably the most that was the most complicated dynamic content thing we've done for a long time inside MailChimp. Like that or anywhere. That was but we got it sorted. But it all came down to the data. And that data was so clean, right? Like,
was it really? Wow.
Oh yeah. We spent ages with them, making sure that everyone was tagged correctly. And so when we sent out those emails, everyone got the right stuff because it was instructions on how to move. They were rebranding a finance tool, and you had to like move from one to the other, and it was like quite a process. And so, these instructions were based on what level of retailer you were, it was, but we used MailChimp for that and it did work.
Wow.
So I was surprised, but at the time, but then I was like, wow, this is what gave me trust that MailChimp is one, listening to its customers, because I know they go out and talk to actual MailChimp customers.
Yeah, you said the CEO still does that, right?
He does. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. He probably does it virtually now. And then which isn't as good as like, I know.
Have a cup of coffee with a customer is even better.
Or a wine. I think like they sometimes prefer a wine because then you get the real answer, right? And so, and this is where, people CEOs especially need to get down and listen to their customers because they're not often doing it, right? They're kind of like getting this information filtered up to them so they can make these high level things based on where they want to go. But in actual fact, getting out and actually talking to a customer, I know that Ben will go, Ben Chestnut, who is one of the owners of MailChimp, has gone and talked to people who have free MailChimp accounts.
Nice. Smart.
I think that's amazing.
That's really smart.
So anyway, I think that so far we've done some interesting stuff in Klaviyo and that, but really for us, like MailChimp was the one where we were able to do some really hard dynamic content stuff that, and it was, yes, I mean, they had to use us, right? They would have been able to do this internally. But they was able to do it.
But the platform could do what you envisioned.
It did it. And by the way, I don't think it could have done it a couple of years ago. Like this was a new thing. In fact, if you look in MailChimp, they've got just new things coming up all the time. Like they test it through the beta accounts. They've got an updated preference center. You can do a lot more there. Smart. There's some really cool stuff happening in there. And it's like, I kind of have hoisted my flag with them because they just support partners the best, like I was saying, and they listen. But I think companies like like Campaign Genius, with your company, like being able to even add to that is I know you and I talk about this a lot. I have done. It's trying to, like, for me, it's trying to find a client who really wants to like go above and beyond. It's actually quite hard. Like
it is hard. I mean, certainly not, I want to talk about Spike and your experience in the marketplace, but in terms of real-time content, Campaign Genius, and the quest to push email a bit in terms of what's possible, in terms of the technical boundaries, in terms of the data-driven boundaries, if you will.
Yeah.
One, we've seen repeatedly that companies don't really have the data house in order. So that was the reason for my surprise that when you said the finance company really had that sorted out. Frequently, it takes help.
That was a month of work, by the way.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, right? And we're all guilty of it. None of us has our CRM or our email database or anything just perfectly squared away, and that's frequently you've got to have that before you start doing other and fancier stuff. The
Yep.
second one, though, I find email practitioners, uh, frankly, they seem so overworked trying to do the stuff well that's been technically possible for a decade or more,
Yeah, yeah.
that newer, even more cutting edge tools and techniques, it's like, oh, I can barely get to that. I mean, you've got one good dynamic content story here, but I'm betting you don't end up getting to do that all the time, because
No.
just standard blocking and tackling email is hard enough.
Well, it is. And like I was I've talked about this recently with you, but I was having a conversation with my dad last week. Uh, and I said to him, I kind of was having a bit of a complaint actually. And I said, Dad, I'm still having the same conversations I had 20 years ago. And he's like, how is that possible? And like a bit of context, my dad in sales for a long time, and he, yeah, to him that was like, what, like how are you having the same conversation? And it's because people still haven't grasped email marketing. And in fact, if we looked at the world and about how many businesses have websites even,
Yeah.
like that is not a high percentage, right? I remember some stats came out in New Zealand. 37% of New Zealand businesses had websites. Now that's several years ago, and so it's maybe moved up a bit higher. But then if you think about that, and it's like, why do I need to be online? And why they need to be online sometimes is the future of their business, right?
Mm.
And a lot of people thinking, I did a lot of work a little while ago. I really concentrated on people who had no database. They had very successful businesses, right? Very successful businesses, and they were looking at selling their business.
Oh, wow.
Because as these baby boomers come through, right?
Yeah.
That's what they're looking at, succession plans and things like that.
Uh-huh.
And what I find with those businesses is that they're very heavily weighed on relationships, and the data is actually in someone else's Outlook, or like it's not sitting there. Yeah, in someone's head, right? And so that means that your business is worthless, because I always say that that the value of your business is in your customer database, but more so the consistent communication with that database. Like if you had two e-commerce businesses, right, and one has been sending out 3 emails a week, and they're both turning over $500,000, right, turning over the same amount of money, but one's 3 times a week, and it's built up this large database, and they kind of, you can see they're doing well. Their open rates are getting better. The other one has kind of been doing $500,000 for the last few years, right? They haven't really moved or grown. They send an email a month, or like they're not really a month at best. They're just relying on people remembering them and coming back. I'd be buying the one that is consistently communicating, because I can see that their value is going to go up because they're actively working on growing their database. The other one is just a stagnant business that is just going to go down. And that's where a lot of businesses globally, if we think about baby boomers, because they're global, they are just being closed up. Like, we're losing a lot of IP.
We are, and we particularly got a shove in the last year, like with pandemic. We got a shove online. I suspect there's a substantial chunk of people who might have hung on. Maybe they were going to adapt a little bit more, maybe not. But now it's just like, oh, I think the bus left.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll just retire or whatever.
Yeah. A lot of people retired last year. Like, they definitely did. Anyway, so, and that's why, and so those businesses were worthless. They were so hard to pass on because they had no customer database. I find that really, and like, it's it's annoying in some respects because like these were very valuable businesses,
Yeah.
providing really good service, and you go and look for them. Oh no, Terry's retired.
Right.
Oh, okay. Who's taking it over? Oh, no one.
No one,
It's like,
because they couldn't, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you
there's
don't,
nothing to sell. Nothing to
yeah,
sell.
it's a funny phenomenon. And if you're a business getting acquired these days, I was having this conversation with someone else. For sure, one of the tangible, measurable things that's going to determine your business value is that list, that attention and relationship asset
It is
that,
absolutely.
that you can point to and say it's this big, it's this often. And if you don't have that, if it's all in someone's head, yeah, it's a little harder to
It
meet the
is.
measure. Yeah.
And you know what? A lot of the time it comes down to it was just too hard. Like they just, they've been burned a lot of times by SC. Oh, hang on, I almost said it then. But let's just say there's some other digital channels where the practices of the people in those channels have been less than just less than like
Yeah.
dodgy, you could almost say, and a very clear sign for me is when you don't have access to an account, because if I don't have access to an account,
Yeah.
that means that something's going on. And a lot of these businesses have been burned, and they just don't get it either. It's so anyway. I know we've digressed a bit, but so email marketing and database marketing and permission marketing, that phrase coined by Seth Godin,
Mm-hmm.
is very much it's a very relevant conversation in
Yeah.
2021,
Yeah.
and we've got to keep talking about it, which is why I love our normal conversation, our conversations that aren't recorded, because I
Bring it up
find
there.
that I find that email marketers are the only people talking about this stuff. Like my friend James, he's a digital strategist, and so but he's all about managing that traffic, and growing the traffic coming to the website. He really focuses on that, and he relies on me to communicate and convert that traffic,
Convert
right?
that traffic.
Like beyond the first sale, like welcoming people on board, like what you can do, the conversations that you can create. And I know that sounds big, but at the end of the day, it is a conversation, because someone came to your website, they went, this looks interesting to me, or hey, that's a good deal if I sign up and I get something off.
Yeah.
And then they sign up, and then crickets, or which happens so much,
Yeah.
or people get the normal like MailChimp or Klaviyo sign up confirmation email,
Turnkey.
no branding in it,
No
nothing. It's
nothing.
like,
No nothing. No
there's just
nothing.
no care. There's just no care. And so, and then you start this like, hey, welcome to the revolution. We've got a client coming on board who are revolutionizing cleaning products. It's going to be very cool. But it's like, join the revolution, welcome to the revolution. And like too many people also don't they're not congruent with their messaging.
Yeah.
Like do you know what though? It's just communication, right? And email to me, like I said, is the best channel for it.
Communication. Well, let me move us back like 2 minutes and to come back to this with even more of a frame around it. This is not a political podcast, so I'm just going to make this an abstract example. When the immediately past U.S. president shot his big mouth off enough to finally get his Twitter account suspended, from a permission and database marketing perspective, there's a multi-billion-dollar asset, poof, gone.
Yeah, gone.
Meaning, among other things, he never owned it. It wasn't his asset.
Such a good point. Such a good point.
Oops. And now I read an article the other day that said trying to do it via email, not the same effect. Like if it's an email list, at least it would be his list. And I hate to say it, but your Facebook page with a zillion followers, your Twitter account with a bunch of people, like you don't own that. You don't own that. You're paying for permission to keep doing it, but for sometimes very arbitrary reasons or even invisible reasons, someone else can go, boop, sorry, gone.
Yeah.
And I've
Yeah.
heard of businesses that have lost, like we don't know why, but suddenly we don't have access to X. And like, because it wasn't actually yours in the first place. And one of the things that makes me, it struck me, why do you like email? Well, a bunch of reasons, but one of them is you stay in control.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yours.
It's a big deal.
Like, even if it's sitting in MailChimp, it's still your database.
It's still your database.
MailChimp don't have ownership of your customers.
Yeah, it's not there.
They'll tell you how to make money out of your customers and maximize and give you the tools.
Yeah.
But it's yours. You can export that out whenever you like and move it to somewhere else, right? And I think that is such a good point, because apparently, like, email marketing, like with Obama, they had a big email list as well. I probably like you, I actually go and have a look at what people are sending. And Trump raised more money, and I will mention him because it was in this thing. Trump and then Biden. Trump was raising more money because he did actually have like a decent size email list, right? That they'd built up.
Fundraising email list, yes.
Yeah, that was from before.
Yeah.
And they hadn't been using it for a while. And then like there was all this delivery stuff going on. And then, but he was using it to raise money. But man, he was burning these.
Pounding that list to death, right? It's like 6-8 times a day.
Yeah. And it's because it wasn't big enough.
Yeah.
That is like, if someone had been there focusing on that even more, like every tweet, sign up to my list.
Yeah.
Sign up.
There you go. Good example.
Like he could have been actually growing that exponentially, and
Dan didn't,
and he didn't. And it's like, marketing is taking advantage of every contact point with your business to get someone to tell them share the message, and then get them to sign up to your list. Like if you're not doing that, like every touch point is a marketing opportunity. Every single one, from the person answering the phone to the website to whatever else you've got going on, to each sale, each page.
Yeah.
People, so the thing is, like, there used to be the classic email marketer's answer. It depends. And the fact is that it does. But every single email marketer I know, like yourself, like you mentioned, Della, like Emily, Ryan, Doug Dennison, these other friends of mine, so passionate about email marketing, and but passionate about the communication that you can have with your customers. And I just find it like this podcast is called The Future of Email Marketing. The future of email marketing is super bright, because those rules are being changed all the time. I'll give you a good example. I don't use my Facebook ad account. I don't know when I did, but for some reason I was locked out. I was like,
oh, wow.
And I was like, how am I locked out? Like, I haven't used it. And then our other accounts are like, I'm like, so I asked for a review, and I don't actually care because I haven't used it for ads for years. I can't remember. I don't use it. So I found that very odd. But the fact that Facebook can just change the rules.
Yes.
And then Google can just change its algorithm. I don't know if you remember when Panda came out, Google's people lost potentially, they didn't actually lose it because they hadn't made it yet, but potentially tens and tens of millions of dollars.
Oh yeah, there were businesses that just got hamstrung. Actually, a friend of mine ran a distinct little business who their service was helping nonprofits be effective on Facebook. And they were like the best at it. And they got to the point where I believe they helped the Chan Zuckerberg initiative which is a nonprofit, launched their thing. But after
Wow.
the Cambridge Analytica scandal,
Yep.
Facebook went, time out. Everybody who's got, the deep data access to do extra special sauce stuff, no, you don't anymore. And my friend's company was just like, poof, like
Wow.
they got folded because they built their house on somebody else's foundation, so to speak. I'll give you a different example of the same thing, and this may be only relevant to the like highly technical listener or viewer, but if you are developing systems and software and you think that Facebook APIs, Twitter APIs, something like that look like a viable way to expand what you do, my honest caveat is be very, very, very judicious about that, because overhead, the bureaucratic overhead, the time overhead, the developer overhead of using those is actually quite high. Like, we got to the point where we decided that we would not do anything involving Facebook integration. This isn't an anti-Facebook point. There was so much bureaucracy repeated over and over in the job of getting and keeping permission to use those things, it wasn't worth the paperwork. Like, literally
Yeah.
wasn't worth the paperwork. It's like, I still get rogue emails going, oh, well, such and such that uses this API is no longer, we're not going to let you unless you reapply. I'm like, yeah, well, we don't use it, and I don't really care about your application anymore. But here's the
Yeah.
point, in contrast with email. Email built on published open standards. We did work to do things like live split testing of content in email. One of the reasons that we could make the decision to do that huge dev work was because there's no one company arbitrarily controlling that. It's like standards that a whole bunch of companies work with that we're all going to agree to keep supporting. So
Yep.
giddy up, I could take the risk without the arbitrary someone else yanking the rug out from under me.
Yeah, it's true. I just, and this is why I love these conversations, because I just remember why I like email so much.
Yeah.
Like, because sometimes it's been a hard year, and
Yeah.
it's been like, oh, why am I doing this? Oh, this is why I'm doing this.
Yeah, that's why I'm doing it.
My other mantra, consistency, trust, loyalty, bars and barbecues. So you are consistent with your email marketing. You actually do what you said you were going to do when they signed up, which you need a marketing plan for, and the power of the BCC. And then that builds trust, because not many people actually do what they said they were going to do.
Right.
And then that builds loyalty, because you're providing good information, relevant, you're doing what you said. And then bars and barbecues. That's when your service or your product is either creating the stories for people to talk about at bars and barbecues and use the best referral method known to man, called word of mouth.
Yes.
And email marketing and even social can superpower that, but it's just not the same as someone actually telling you. And human beings, by the way, are wired for that. We love being able to help our fellow man. And if we've got someone that we can go, you should talk to them.
To this guy. Yes.
We'll do it, right?
Yeah.
And that's where we need to either create stories or share stories that people can talk about. And like, email is just such a good medium for that. Like, I know we could probably have a couple of podcasts on this, but this is where things like MailChimp making customer journeys easy. All these different little dynamic content that you can do, like, based on interests or based on the products that you bought. And like recommendation engines are never perfect, right? And this is why, if you don't know, that if you're buying something not for you on Amazon, make sure you mark it as a gift, because otherwise they'll start sending you recommendations.
Oh, you just clarified. You just clarified something that keeps showing up in web browsers. Thank you.
But do you know what? Like, so if the best company at recommendations in the world relies on you to do that, to send you recommendations. I do think their book recommendations are very good though. But apart from that, you put the wrong thing in, until you buy your next thing that's relevant to you. So, mark as a gift. But yeah, it's like, human beings, and this is the other reason, we get to communicate via email, via this one-to-one channel. It's a great opportunity. We need to treat people's email addresses like gold, because they are.
They are.
To me, they are like the driver's license of the future, basically, right? Because they follow you around. People don't change their personal email addresses as often as people think.
Right.
They change their work addresses, but not their personal
Not their
address.
personal. Interesting.
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 And this is why the future of email marketing is so bright, because those email addresses are following people, and if we treat them with the respect that they deserve, we're going to build really, really good channels, really loyal customer databases, and like stay in business for longer.
And actual relationships. Well, it occurs to me that the social media bubble and the wild west of data and privacy, that's coming to an end, right?
Yeah.
If legislation is always a signal that finally something's getting to be top of mind, right? Because legislatures don't move that fast. But there's not a nation that's not going, hang on a second, privacy, data, control. Like, we're all thinking about that. So
Yeah.
The social media platforms that sort of flourished from everybody ignoring control over their own data are going to have a much bigger struggle. Email, as old fashioned as it is, has stayed in the I'll hear from you if I say you can talk to me, and I'll cut it off if you don't. Like, the email recipient has stayed in control. Leave idiots that spam aside. Like, you've stayed in control of that one-to-one, as you said, relationship the whole time. And now that we're starting to realize that from a business asset perspective, someone else controlling your list is not good. See earlier conversation about Trump. And from a consumer perspective, we're all getting noised to death on social media. And I think we're realizing that we need to take a little more responsibility for our own intake as well. I do suspect email's got a real growth path ahead of it.
Well, that kind of harks back to my stoicism. That's taking care of my inside mind, right? But look, I think one of the biggest challenges facing email marketing is going to be privacy. And the reason that is because, and this might just seem totally off the wall to the listeners here, is that young people keep things more private than what we think. And they are moving away from platforms that don't take their privacy seriously. And it's an interesting move, right? Because we don't think about young people as being that private. They share everything. So like, no, they actually don't. Like, they're sharing things amongst their friends, but amongst their friends.
Yeah.
They're not on Facebook. Like, they might be on Instagram, but it's a private account. Yeah. And you know what I mean? So when things get out of those accounts, say, like, that is such a breach of trust for those friends, huge breach of trust, right? And so for me, like, I think getting the data that we need to send more personal email could potentially get harder. So that's why we need to be thinking about the best way to engage and get the responses we want, because cookies being taken down, all these things that are happening.
Yeah.
Privacy is going to get harder. And it amazes me, we used to think that young people posted all this stuff. No, Generation Z whatever it was, did that. Millennials don't,
Yeah. And taking the behavior of the first couple waves of digital natives and assuming that behavior would continue as they aged looks a little bit silly in the rear view mirror. I mean, I've got sons in their 20s, and I think I'd safe to say they'd be like, I don't have time to post all that like crap. I've got, jobs and responsibility in life and other interests. And I just don't need the noise. Like, it's the indulgence of adolescence to go live in public. And at a certain point, you just don't want to bother anymore as you grow up.
I have to say, like, I am so glad we didn't have social media when I was young.
Interesting.
Like,
I agree.
I just think we got away with and got to do some things that
Best
young
not
people.
photographed, among other things.
Although I have some photographs of some things where I'm just like, was I doing that? What were you thinking? And I've kept them as reminders.
Oh
But
wow.
I think but it's a photograph. Like it's
Yeah.
not on some
Yeah.
website somewhere that's
It's in your
instantly
control.
shared, you know? And so, yeah, like I think about my 9-year-old daughter wants a YouTube channel, and she creates her own YouTube videos in iMovie,
Yeah.
mainly thanks to COVID, actually. Like lockdown, she
Yeah.
got very creative. I showed her how to
Nice.
use iMovie for a
Nice.
little bit,
Yeah.
and like she was 8,
She just
now
ran
she's
with it,
9.
right?
She ran with it. Her and her girlfriends were making movies with Zoom at 8
Sweet.
years old. And I'm like,
Wow. Wow.
wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Like doing like I just showed her like a template and she just ran with it. And I was like,
Wow.
wow. So creativity wise, like what are they going to be doing as
Yeah.
well?
Yeah.
Because holy mackerel, that's just like that's next level digital native,
It
Like
is,
being
but here's a prediction, right? I wouldn't be surprised to see back into it. Snapchat's big innovation was amnesia, right? They're like,
yes,
ooh, right? There's huge
yes.
value on I'll post it, but it's gonna evaporate and disappear. Someone may come up with this novel idea called privacy, where they'd say if your daughter wants to exchange stuff with her friends within their group, we enable that. We don't look at it. We can't look at it. We don't control it. They own it. All that other stuff, and like ironclad guarantee.
Oh, you mean Gmail, right? You're talking about Gmail.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah, right. I mean, if there's entrepreneurs out there want to invent the next thing, like get old fashioned. How about civil media? I'm enough with social. Give me civil again.
Oh, it is interesting. Like my wife and her girlfriends do chat, like Gmail chat a lot. Like just live in
Interesting,
their email, and it's like this isn't like
huh?
not WhatsApp. They do have one WhatsApp group,
Yeah,
but Messenger, and I've seen like Facebook spun out Messenger. I think that's a future proof of the business actually spinning that out,
yeah,
just for the time when they do actually get split up. But Messenger and like creating those groups, at the end of the day, all they are is email groups. And if you think about that group that you and I belong to called Only Influencers,
right, right.
like those old email list tools, like they are so good. Like subscriptions making a comeback now, right? Like so many people
Yes, yes.
making money out of things. But the guys who like Frank Kern, all these like
Hmm.
these internet marketers and that, they just know that it's all about the list,
It's all about the list.
and
Yeah,
they've never stopped. What's that other guy? Launch.
yeah.
The,
Doug, he lives in Durango. Actually, lives in my hometown. Yeah, yeah. The launch guy. We're
yeah,
talking about
yeah, yeah. Oh man, he's so good.
yes.
But like those guys, like it's all about the list, and if people actually like stopped getting taken in by the glitz of this, and oh, but I can just post on Facebook. Like no one's seeing your stuff on Facebook. Like literally no one is seeing your stuff on Facebook. Maybe 1 or 3%
Yeah,
to 3% of the
yeah,
people who like your page will see that post, right?
yeah.
However, in saying that, when we post on Facebook at the same time as we send an email, that definitely lifts engagement. Like we've tested that.
Interesting.
But it lifts engagement in the emails.
Oh, Glenn, you just froze. Here we had this flawless recording going. Let's wait and hope he comes back. Okay. Hopefully the editing team can drop this section out. We'll do a clip out, and if if Glenn comes back, we'll pick it up from there. Although the two of us, true to form, have gone on for an hour and a quarter already. Just going to leave that running.
Was that the Zoom gods telling us that we'd spoken for too long?
Well, I was thinking of that, or you were like, oh man, he did it again. Yak yak, bye. We should probably wrap, but I'm glad you came back because you were right in the middle of something and you froze like this.
I was in a rant, I'm sure.
You're on a good rant. If nothing else, that I'm going to earmark this episode for small medium businesses that are thinking about email. One, yes, of course. Two, it's absolutely critical to do your business value. Three, at least in the US, MailChimp has such a great, strong brand with small businesses that I think bigger ones don't necessarily realize what range of needs MailChimp can meet.
Yeah, I agree.
And especially learning from you in the past year about just how capable the platform is and how fast it's expanding that capability. Like, okay, if you've got a medium-sized business out there, do not rule out MailChimp and say it's just for small bananas, so to speak.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's people in there with millions of customers, right? So. And hey, they'll help you with the pricing too. So once you get to a certain thing, like you've actually got your own MailChimp team basically working with you, right? So on delivery,
nice.
We've had delivery experts working with us for our bigger clients. There's a lot of stuff that you can do within that platform. But look, this, as usual, I don't know if someone is going to want to listen to maybe at double speed, and then at double speed, they might not understand me. But it's funny that we're looking to reach more into the US market, and it's because I think that our time zones and everything, like, actually when people understand it, they're like, oh, okay, that actually does work for us, because we can organize a lot of stuff, and it doesn't really matter what coast you're on either, because it seems we can always work at different times of the day. But the one thing for me is that New Zealand is a small market, so I need to be talking to an email marketers. Like, I've proven to myself, we can work with anyone, anywhere, and so and the fact that you're in Seattle and I'm in the backwoods, apparently I live in rural Auckland. I don't.
I'm in rural Washington, so that's
okay. Yeah. even though we're like 5 minutes or we're not far away, right? So from a town, but only the couriers call it rural, by the way. So then they can charge you more to bring it to you.
Ah, you pay the same freight I do. It's like service calls have the whatever it is automatic.
Yeah.
I need someone to fix X. Okay, that starts at $100.
Yeah, it's literally like a mile and a half, and I'm going to say mile and a half down the road is where oh sorry, 2 miles down the road is where the border is basically, and it's
Wow.
like, come on, drive
Uh,
up the road.
yeah, well,
But
you get the
hey, look,
pleasure of looking out the garage window at least. Hey, I want to close with a speed round. Three
yeah,
questions. You ready?
go.
Dogs, cats, both, or neither?
Dogs, cat, dogs,
What? Dogs? Your dog's cat.
dogs.
Okay, awesome. Name a favorite place.
Oh, my favorite place, home.
Home. Nice. I like that. Favorite book or author?
Oh, that is a toss up, but if it's one, I'm going to say The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien.
And after my own heart. Yeah. Which
Yeah.
kind of revolutionized the tourism industry in your already beautiful country. Yes.
Absolutely. But I just say, like, as a little aside to that, like, I don't say that the other books I read are my favorites, but I have to say I am really enjoying Lives of the Stoics
Who's that by?
by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hannesley, mostly because when they introduce a
Wait,
new
by
way
Ryan
of,
Holiday.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. And what, because he wrote Daily Stoic, so that's, but as well as Ego is the Enemy and all that stuff. But the cool thing about it is that it actually tells you. I did a little bit of Latin at school, right, like a couple of years, but it tells you how to pronounce their names correctly, and I love that. I love that. I think if even Tolkien kind of gave you an idea, but it was like, I think like the fact that like Diogenes is like, I know how to pronounce that because it looks like Diogenes or something, right? Like it doesn't look like Diogenes, and so yeah, that's one of my favorite books at the moment. Do
Nice.
you know what? Do you know what? Why I see The Hobbit though is because, and I know it's a speed round, but that book had such an impact on me. It was a big, thick book. I read it when I was very, very young. And I recently I'm writing a book list of all the books that I either read several times or have had an impact on me, and I've written why. And that one, basically, number one, that and then It by Stephen King, which frightened the shit out of me. So, oh, sorry. But
Good.
me and all my classmates at when we were like 11, like that was just, why did we read that book?
Yeah.
Terrifying, terrifying.
Yes. Well, yeah. Stephen King's he's actually remarkable. You look at the sheer number of things that he's written and the man's discipline as a writer. Like he still sits down and pounds it out every day. It's like, dang,
Yeah.
that's impressive. It's
Hey, I'll tell you, I've really enjoyed this, Matthew, and I know that you and most email marketers enjoy talking about email marketing, but you and I, we digress. So I am actually going to start a podcast, or I am too, which we'll, once it's actually up and running, we'll get you onto that because especially talking about the future of email marketing, but dynamic content, like what the things that we can put into emails that people aren't thinking about.
yep.
And hopefully maybe having some new conversations with our customers instead of the same ones.
There you go. We'll wrap it up. My guest has been Glenn Edley, CEO of Spike. And if you're thinking about email marketing and want some help, go to spike.co.nz and connect with Glenn and his team there. Glenn, thanks so much. I knew it would be fun, but it was huge fun.
It was awesome. I
Have a
love
great
it.
day,
So,
bud.
see you later. Bye.